UNICEF's Life Skill Framework explains this as accurately assessing one's feelings, interests, values, skills, strengths, and weaknesses in the context one is living and thereby building self identity. Linked skills that get impacted by this is self esteem, self worth, coping with emotions, confidence, and empathy. There is an increasingly strong focus on empowering young children with the kind of life skills that would enable them to become more contributing members to society. In India's complex and diverse scenario, life skills and more importantly, self awareness is something that elicits empowerment among children to be more contributing members through participation. Now, this participation helps them recognize their power of agency, their power to change themselves, and also make corrective action wherever such requirements are needed. Now, in many cases, these types of skill sets have empowered students to make positive changes not only within themselves but also the society around them, to be able to create an inclusion for social justice and also harmony in society. There's also evidence that these type of psychosocial competencies help students move out of poverty, move out of restricting environments, and truly realize their full potential. When you look around the world today, the types of successful people have one thing in common. They know exactly what they're really good at. And they tend to work on that over and over again and also understand few of the qualities that stop themselves from doing this better. This is what separates from a successful individual who has a positive contribution to society and someone who does not have enough information to work on and thereby usually tends to make more mistakes when making such life decisions. Now, what we hope is through these self-awareness areas, students are able to get a realistic picture of themselves, work upon those areas which are so-called weaknesses, and also define a system in which they can constantly evaluate how they are progressing from one point to the next. So when we are largely looking at the various types of self-awareness activities we could do, one, of course, could be a psychometric assessment. Others could be activities that you perform in the classroom in groups. Some others could be observations through interviews. They could be professional talks that you plan out for your schools where you bring in industry experts who share their experiences with young children. And also at the same time, allow those children to evaluate what are the things which are common between themselves and their role models. Which are the areas they need to work harder at. They get so much of insightful information because of these activities that they're able to make effective life choices. And ultimately, that is what we hope to achieve as career guides. Moving on to one such activity that would help us enable self-awareness in students is what we call as a Johari window. This activity has been adopted from Joseph Luft and Harrington Ingram's Johari window that was developed back in 1955. Let's look at this activity in a far more detailed manner. I would take you through all the steps that are required to ensure this activity is done in the most appropriate manner within groups of students inside your classroom. Now, this will require students to be in groups and reflect upon themselves through the information that they receive from their classmates, allow for open channels of communication as well. Now, and often focus upon those blind spots that students are not able to gather because of self-awareness. As this is an adopted version of the Johari window, we would like to change the name to Who Am I? The estimated time required for this activity would be roughly about 30 minutes. You would have to change the seating arrangements of students to allow for the class to work in groups. Now, a few of the life skills that we want to address with the help of this activity would be self-awareness and communication. Career guides will be able to enhance learners' self-awareness through reflection and acceptance, facilitate learners to take constructive feedback from each other on their strengths and weaknesses, facilitate peer group self-disclosure of learners in a safe and judgment-free environment. And this needs to be reiterated in the classroom that students are not to make fun of each other for whatever disclosures they make, and they should be made comfortable for whatever aspects that they disclose about themselves. This will also help learners develop awareness about the unknown aspects of themselves. And in the next slide, we will share with you an order in which the activity has to be executed. Now we have moved into a full screen because the amount of content that you see out here would be quite detailed. The educator will have to start the activity by randomly dividing the class into small groups of 4 or 5 learners. Learners will have to be encouraged to partner with other learners who are not their closest of friends. This is done so that students are able to have a more objective viewpoint of their classmates and a little more focus on the activity at large is maintained. Number 2, the educator will have to begin the activity by giving a list of objectives to each group. The educator may also display the list on the screen if not possible to get it printed. The list of objectives will be on the next subsequent screens that you would see later. Learners will be asked to select a list of 5 adjectives that describe them best from the list and write it down on a piece of paper. They will fold the paper and keep it safe with them. The learners will be given 2 minutes to complete this activity. They should be spontaneous in their responses to facilitate generation of authentic information and outcome. On a separate piece of paper, the learners will be asked to write down any 5 adjectives that describe each of their group members the best. They should fold the piece of paper and write down the name of the group member for whom the adjectives are meant on the folded paper. Learners will not write their own names anywhere in any of the slips. This is to maintain the anonymity of the responses. They will be given 5 minutes for this step, and in the next step, all group members will shuffle the folded slips except for the ones they've created for themselves and place them in the center of the table. Each group member will pick up all the folded papers marked with his or her name and open them up. Now let's move on to the next slide. Now next, learners should also take out a list of objectives that they have completed for themselves at the beginning of this exercise. All the learners will be asked to work independently to arrange objectives that they have assigned to themselves and those that others have assigned to them in the format of the Johari window as follow. Like you'd see that the format is a simple table where you have what is known to self, what is known to others, which is an open area. Now, as you can see the table below, it's a pretty simple table that has 4 areas that one needs to assess, which is an open area, which is a combination of what is known to self and what is known to others, which is a blind spot, something that is not known to self but is known to others, something that is a hidden area that is known to self but is not known to others, and something that is not known to self and also not known to others is something that is completely unknown. So there are 4 quadrants in which at least 3 quadrants could be filled quite effectively. Now to facilitate the compilation process for the learners, the educator can explain the components of the Johari window as shared below. Now this has been already explained, but just to reiterate further, the first quadrant, which is an open area, lists the adjectives that both you and others have commonly used to describe you as a person. This means that these are the attributes that both you and others know about you. This information is therefore in the open area known as arena. Now the blind area, which is quadrant 2, represents adjectives that you were not aware of but others have used to describe you. This means that there are attributes that only others know of you. This information is therefore in the blind spot. Now in quadrant 3, these are the qualities pointed out only by you about yourself and are unknown to others. This quadrant represents the hidden self. And the unknown area, which is quadrant 4, the last quadrant represents qualities that are yet to be known to you and to others. Though this quadrant is usually empty, it represents a myriad of possibilities for you, so self-discovery is a lifelong process. The educator will have to next explain the objective of this group exercise, which is to enhance self-awareness by enlarging the open area. The open area is the most important quadrant, as generally, the more people know about themselves and each other, the more productive, cooperative and effective they will become together. Towards the end, the educator will also caution learners that the ultimate goal of the Johari window is to enlarge the open area without disclosing information that is too personal or sensitive. The educator will give some time to learners to quietly reflect on their own Johari window. As a conclusion to this exercise, the educator will take feedback from learners about their experiences of the exercise and their key learning. Subsequently, the educators will write down their own reflections within the space provided. As a conclusion and follow-up for this exercise, the educator will ask learners to write down their own reflections on the following areas, which is A, their action plan for enlarging their own open area. B, they take on adjectives listed in the hidden area and the reasons for them. C, their point of view on the adjectives listed as blind spots. Let's look at some of the sample lists of adjectives that you would have to show in the beginning of the session to them. You can take a screenshot of this image, or you can pause this and probably note it down somewhere. Let's look at the next window. Now in this slide, you would notice all the adjectives that are supposed to be used in the activity. It is important to mention that we've selectively chosen words that are positive in nature so as to avoid conflict in the classroom. In some cases, you would also have to mediate in places where students don't agree with each other's inputs on their attributes. You may take a screenshot of this image or take a picture of this to try this activity out and let us know what are the various things that you've learned and you helped your students learn through the help of activities like this. With this, there are tons of other group activities that could be fun for both you and your learners to be able to help them on a journey of self-discovery.